I woke up at 4:07 a.m. Not because of noise, not because of a bad dream, but because something felt off. It took me a second to realize what it was. Silence. Not the normal kind you get in the middle of the night, where the city hum fades into the background. This was different. Heavy. Like the room itself was holding its breath. I stared at the ceiling, still half asleep, trying to figure out what had pulled me out of it so suddenly. Then I did what I'd done every morning for years without thinking. I reached to my right. Cold sheets. I blinked, my hand still resting where she should have been. No warmth. No movement. Just an empty space that felt bigger than it should. For a few seconds I didn't move. I just laid there, listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No running water. No quiet sounds from the kitchen. Just that same silence pressing in on me from all sides. "She's probably in the bathroom," I muttered under my breath, more out of habit than belief. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. This had been happening more and more lately. At first, it was small things. Megan turning away in bed. Saying it was too hot to sleep close. Kicking the blanket off and laughing it off like it was nothing. I didn't question it. Relationships change. People need space. That's normal, right? Then she started staying up later. At first, I'd fall asleep before her. Wake up in the middle of the night, and she'd still be on her phone, the glow lighting up her face in that soft blue way. She'd say she couldn't sleep. That her mind was racing. I believed her. Then came the night she just didn't come to bed at all. She'd say she fell asleep on the couch. Or that she didn't want to wake me up. Always something small, something that sounded reasonable if you didn't look too closely. And I didn't. I didn't want to. Because looking too closely meant admitting something I wasn't ready to admit. I finally sat up, rubbing my face, trying to shake off that uneasy feeling crawling under my skin. The apartment felt different. Same furniture. Same walls. Same view of the streetlights leaking through the blinds. But it didn't feel like ours anymore. It felt like I was borrowing it. Like I was staying in someone else's place and didn't quite belong. I swung my legs off the bed and stood up, the cold floor snapping me fully awake. The bedroom door was slightly open, just enough to let a thin line of light from the hallway cut across the floor. I stepped out. Empty. The living room was dark. No TV glow. No sign she'd been there recently. No blanket tossed aside, no glass on the table, nothing out of place. Too clean. Too untouched. I moved toward the kitchen, flipping the light on as I walked in. The brightness hit harder than it should have, making me squint for a second. That's when I noticed it. The coffee machine. Empty. No water. No grounds. Nothing set up. It sounds stupid, but that was the moment something inside me really shifted. Megan always set it up the night before. Always. She used to say mornings were easier when something was already waiting for you. That smell of fresh coffee? She said it made everything feel okay, even on bad days. I don't even remember when she stopped doing it. I just know that standing there, staring at that empty machine, it felt like looking at proof of something I'd been trying to ignore. I filled it myself. Measured the coffee. Added water. Pressed the button. The machine came to life with a low hum, breaking the silence in a way that almost felt intrusive. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching it like it mattered more than it should. Like if I focused on something simple, I wouldn't have to think about everything else. Minutes passed. Or maybe longer. Time didn't feel normal. I poured myself a cup and sat down at the small table by the window. The city outside was still asleep, streetlights casting that dim, orange glow across the empty road. I used to love this view. Now it just felt distant. I wrapped my hands around the mug, letting the heat settle into my fingers, grounding me a little. Then I heard it. The door. A soft click, followed by the faint sound of heels against the floor. My stomach dropped before I even turned. She was back. For a second, I stayed completely still, my eyes fixed on the table, listening. Each step was steady. Confident. Not rushed. Not tired. Just normal. Like coming home at almost 5 in the morning was just another routine. I slowly turned my head. Megan walked in like I wasn't even there. No hesitation. No pause. No reaction to the light being on. She knew I was awake. She just didn't care. She was still wearing the same dress she left in, black, fitted, the one she said was just something simple, when she tried it on earlier that evening. It didn't look simple now. It looked intentional. Her makeup was still mostly in place, just slightly smudged around the edges. Her hair a little looser than before, like it had been touched, adjusted, lived in. She didn't look drunk. Didn't look exhausted. If anything, she looked awake. Alive in a way I hadn't seen around me in a long time. She walked past me, close enough that I caught a hint of her perfume, mixed with something else I couldn't quite place. Not mine. I opened my mouth. Megan! The word barely made it out. She didn't stop. Didn't even slow down. Just kept walking straight toward the bedroom, like I was background noise. Like the sound of the coffee machine. Like something that existed, but didn't matter. The bedroom door closed behind her with a soft click. And just like that, it was silent again. I sat there, staring at nothing, my hands still wrapped around the mug. That was it. No fight. No argument. No explanation. Nothing dramatic. Just absence. And that's when it finally hit me, not all at once, but slowly, like something settling into place. This wasn't about distance anymore. It wasn't about stress or work or phases. I wasn't being pushed away. I had already been removed. Piece by piece. Moment by moment. Until there was nothing left of me in her life except a body sitting at the kitchen table at 4 in the morning. And the worst part? I didn't even know when it happened. I didn't follow her into the bedroom. That's the part that stuck with me later. Not that she came home at 5 in the morning. Not even that she walked past me like I didn't exist. It was the fact that I just sat there. Like I had already accepted something I hadn't fully understood yet. I stayed at the table long after she closed the door. The coffee in my hand went cold, untouched. Outside, the sky slowly shifted from black to that dull gray Chicago gets right before sunrise. The kind that makes everything look flat, lifeless. I used to love mornings like that. Now it just felt like proof that another night had passed without me being part of her life. At some point I stood up. Not because I had a plan. Just because sitting there started to feel pathetic. I walked to the sink, poured the coffee out, watched it swirl down the drain like it meant something. Like I could rinse the feeling off with it. Didn't work. The apartment was quiet again, but now it felt different. Heavier. Like something had shifted and wasn't going back. I glanced toward the bedroom door. Still closed. No movement. No sound. For a second, I thought about opening it. Just walking in and asking the question that had been sitting in my chest for weeks now. Where were you? Simple question. Normal question. The kind of question a husband should be able to ask his wife without feeling like he's crossing a line. But I didn't move. Because something in me already knew I wouldn't get a real answer. And worse, I knew I'd probably accept whatever she gave me. That realization hit harder than anything else. So instead I grabbed my jacket and left. The bar downstairs was technically closed, but the owner always left the lights on low for cleanup. I knew the staff. Knew the routine. It was easier to sit there than to stay upstairs pretending everything was fine. As soon as I stepped outside, the cold air hit me like a reset button. Sharp. Real. Honest. Unlike everything else lately. I walked down the steps, pushed the door open, and the familiar smell of stale beer and wood polish greeted me. Normally it was comforting. That morning, it just felt empty. Tony, the night guy, looked up from behind the counter when he saw me. "Damn, man," he said, raising an eyebrow. "You're up early. Or late." Not sure which. I forced a small smile. Yeah. Something like that. He studied me for a second longer than usual, like he was trying to read something I didn't want to show. You good? He asked. Simple question. Too simple. Yeah, I said automatically. Just couldn't sleep. He nodded, but I could tell he didn't fully buy it. Still, he didn't push. Just grabbed a mug and poured me coffee without asking. I took it, muttered a thanks, and sat at the far end of the bar. For a while, neither of us said anything. The quiet here was different. Not heavy like upstairs. Just calm. Neutral. Safe, almost. I stared at the surface of the bar, running my finger along a small scratch in the wood. I'd seen it 100 times before. Never paid attention to it. Funny how you start noticing details when you're trying not to think about something bigger. She's still working late? Tony asked after a while, casual but not really. I let out a slow breath. Yeah, I said. Something like that. He nodded again, wiping down a glass. Chicago'll do that to people, he said. Chew up your schedule, spit it out somewhere else. I almost laughed at that. If only it were that simple. I didn't correct him. Didn't explain. Because saying it out loud would have made it real. And I wasn't ready for that yet. Instead, I just sat there, replaying everything. Not just that night. Everything. The late client meetings. The new dresses she never wore around me, only when she was heading out. The way she started turning her phone away whenever I walked into the room. Small things, one by one. Individually, they didn't mean much. Together, they painted a picture I didn't want to look at. I thought about the last time she actually asked me how my day was. I couldn't remember. That bothered me more than anything else. It wasn't just the distance. It was the indifference. Like I had slowly faded out of her life without either of us acknowledging it. Even our dog, Max, had picked up on it. He used to sleep on her side of the bed, curled up near her feet. Would follow her around the apartment like she was the center of his world. Now, he stayed close to me. Every night. Didn't matter where I was, couch, kitchen, bedroom. He was there. At first, I thought it was random. Then I realized something that made my chest tighten in a way I couldn't explain. Even the dog could feel it. Feel the shift. Feel that something wasn't right. I rubbed my face, exhaling slowly. This is stupid, I muttered under my breath. Tony glanced over. What is? I shook my head. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Because for the first time, I stopped asking if something was wrong. And started asking how long it had been. That question stuck. Wouldn't let go. How long had she been coming home like that? How many nights had I been asleep while she lived a completely separate life? How many conversations had I missed because they were happening somewhere else, with someone else? My grip tightened slightly around the mug. That's when a memory hit me. A small one. A couple nights ago, she had been sitting on the couch, smiling at her phone. Not just a normal smile. That kind of smile. The one she used to give me. Soft. Real. Effortless. I remember asking, "What's so funny?" She didn't even look up. "Nothing," she said. "Just something stupid." And that was it. Conversation over. I didn't push. Didn't question it. I just accepted it. Just like everything else. And sitting there now, in that quiet bar at 5 in the morning, I realized something that made my stomach drop. I hadn't just been ignoring the signs. I had been helping her hide them. By not asking. By not pushing. By pretending everything was normal when it clearly wasn't. Tony set another cup of coffee in front of me, pulling me out of my thoughts. "On the house," he said. I nodded, barely registering it. Because the thought had finally settled into something clear. Something solid. Something I couldn't ignore anymore. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't insecurity. This wasn't me overthinking. This was real. And whatever was happening, It had been happening for a while. I just hadn't been part of it. By the time I went back upstairs, the sun was already coming up. That dull gray light had turned into something brighter, spilling through the windows and making everything look too exposed. Like there was nowhere left for things to hide. I stood outside the apartment door for a second before going in. Not because I was nervous. Because I already knew nothing inside had changed. I opened the door quietly. Max was the first to notice me. He lifted his head from the couch, tail thumping once against the cushion before he jumped down and walked over. Not excited. Not hyper. Just there. Like he'd been waiting. "Hey, buddy," I muttered, scratching behind his ear. He leaned into it for a second, then looked past me toward the bedroom. The door was still closed. Of course it was. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me, and the apartment felt exactly the same as when I left, except now it was daytime, and the silence didn't have the same excuse. I walked into the kitchen out of habit. Her shoes were by the door. The same heels from last night. Carefully placed like she always did. That detail stuck with me for some reason. Not kicked off. Not messy. Just placed. Like everything was controlled. Planned. I leaned against the counter, staring at them longer than I should have. Trying to imagine where they'd been. What kind of night leaves shoes like that untouched? Max padded over and sat near my feet. Didn't move. Didn't wander off. Just stayed. That quiet loyalty hit harder than I expected. I exhaled slowly and finally looked toward the bedroom again. Still closed. Something in me shifted right then. Not anger. Not yet. Something colder. Clearer. I walked down the hallway and stopped in front of the door. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the handle. This shouldn't have been a big deal. It's my bedroom too. My home. My wife. And yet it felt like I was about to walk into a space I wasn't invited into anymore. That thought alone told me everything I needed to know. I opened the door. Slow. Quiet. Megan was asleep. Curled slightly on her side, facing away from me. The same position she used to sleep in when we first moved in together. For a split second, it almost looked normal. Familiar. Like nothing had changed. But then I noticed the details. Her phone was in her hand. Still. Like she had fallen asleep mid-conversation. The screen was dark now, but her grip on it was loose, casual. Comfortable. That wasn't new. What was new was how natural it looked. Like whoever she'd been talking to was the last thing on her mind before she drifted off. Not me. I stepped further into the room. Quiet enough not to wake her. Close enough to see her clearly. There was no guilt on her face. No tension. No sign that anything about last night, or the weeks before it, weighed on her at all. She looked peaceful. That hit harder than anything. Because it meant one thing. Whatever she was doing, she wasn't conflicted about it. I glanced around the room. That's when I started noticing things I hadn't let myself see before. Her closet. Half of it was empty. At least, emptier than it used to be. At first glance, you wouldn't catch it. But standing there, really looking, it was obvious. Less dresses. Less shoes. Less her. I walked over slowly, opening it wider. Hangers spaced out. Gaps where things used to be. And suddenly, memories started connecting in ways I hadn't allowed before. "That's new," she'd say when I noticed something missing. "Oh, I donated it." Or, "I just don't wear that anymore." I believed her. Every time. Because why wouldn't I? People clean out their closets all the time. But standing there now, it didn't feel like cleaning. It felt like preparation. I closed the closet slowly, my jaw tightening just slightly. Still not anger. Just that same cold clarity. I turned back toward the bed. Her phone shifted slightly in her hand as she moved in her sleep. That's when the screen lit up. A notification. Just for a second. But it was enough. A name. I didn't recognize it. No contact picture. Just a message preview. Last night was. The rest cut off. The screen went dark again. And for a moment, everything in me went completely still. There it was. Not proof. Not confirmation. But something close enough that my brain didn't even try to argue anymore. I didn't pick up the phone. Didn't unlock it. Didn't need to. Because I already knew what I'd see. And more importantly, I already knew how I'd feel. So I stepped back. Quietly. Carefully. Like I didn't want to disturb anything. Not her. Not the illusion. I walked out of the bedroom and closed the door behind me. Max followed me back into the living room, sitting down again like he understood something had changed. I stood there for a while, just looking around. At the couch. The table. The small things we had built a life around. And for the first time, it didn't feel like something I was losing. It felt like something I had already lost. And just hadn't accepted yet. I ran a hand over my face and let out a slow breath. One thought kept repeating in my head, over and over. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't something that just happened. This was planned. Carefully. Quietly. Piece by piece. And I had been standing in the middle of it the whole time. Thinking I still mattered. That realization didn't break me. It didn't make me angry. It did something worse. It made everything make sense. And once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. I looked toward the front door. Then back toward the bedroom. Then down at Max. Yeah, I muttered quietly. I get it now. He just stared back at me. And for the first time in weeks, I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't guessing. I wasn't hoping. I knew. And that changed everything. I didn't say anything to her that morning. That probably sounds strange. Maybe even weak. Most people would have stormed back into the bedroom, woken her up, demanded answers right then and there. But that's the thing about moments like that. They're not as loud as you think. They're quiet. Clear. Final. And for the first time in weeks, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was observing. I spent the rest of the morning moving through the apartment like I was seeing it for the first time. Not as a home, but as a place filled with evidence I had ignored. The kitchen counter. Her favorite mug, the chipped white one she refused to throw away, was gone. I hadn't noticed when it disappeared. The shelf near the window. A small photo of us from a trip to Michigan, gone. Not replaced. Just removed. I walked over to the hallway closet and opened it. Her coat wasn't there. Not the one she wore almost every day. Again, I hadn't noticed. Or maybe I had, but chose not to register it. That was the pattern, wasn't it? Things didn't vanish all at once. They faded. Quietly. Gradually. Until one day you look around and realize half your life has already been packed up, and you didn't even see it happening. Max followed me from room to room, never more than a step behind. I crouched down and scratched his head again. You saw it too, huh? I said under my breath. His tail moved slightly. No hesitation. No confusion. Animals don't overthink things. They just feel when something's off. I stood up and checked the time. 8:42 a.m. She'd be up soon. And for the first time, I wasn't dreading it. I wasn't hoping for explanations. I wasn't trying to fix anything. I just wanted to see how she would act. That was it. Because now, I knew the truth wasn't going to come from what she said. It was going to come from how little she felt the need to say anything at all. I made coffee again. Not because I wanted it, just because it gave me something to do. Something normal. Something predictable. The machine hummed to life, filling the silence again. A few minutes later, I heard movement from the bedroom. Soft at first. Then clearer. The sound of a drawer opening. Footsteps. The door creaked open. I didn't turn around immediately. I just stood there, staring at the coffee pouring into the cup, letting the moment stretch. Morning, she said. Her voice was neutral. Not warm. Not cold. Just there. Like we were roommates. I picked up the mug and finally turned. Morning. She looked exactly how she had 100 other mornings. Oversized shirt. Bare face. Hair slightly messy. Familiar. Except now it felt like I was looking at a version of her that didn't belong to me anymore. She walked past me into the kitchen, grabbing a glass of water. No hesitation. No acknowledgement of anything unusual. Not even a hint that coming home at 5 in the morning might require some kind of explanation. That was the part that stuck. Not the lying. Not the sneaking around. The complete absence of effort to even pretend. You gettin' late, I said. Calm. Simple. She didn't even look up as she took a sip. Yeah. Work thing. Work thing. That's what it had become. Not even a full sentence anymore. Just enough words to move past the moment. I nodded slowly. Didn't challenge it. Didn't ask anything else. And for a split second, just a split second, I saw it. That flicker in her eyes. Not guilt. Not fear. Relief. Because I didn't push. Because I made it easy. Because I stayed predictable. That's when it clicked even deeper. She wasn't worried about getting caught. She was used to not being questioned. Used to me accepting whatever version of reality she handed me. That realization settled in heavy. But still. No anger. Not yet. Just clarity sharpening into something more defined. She set the glass down and leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone. Same position as always. Same habit. But now I saw it differently. The angle of the screen. Tilted away. Just slightly. Enough. Busy day? She asked, still not looking at me. It almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny. Because it felt scripted. Like she was playing her role in something that had already ended. Yeah, I said. Something like that. She nodded absent-mindedly. Didn't ask what. Didn't care enough to follow up. Just filled the silence so it wouldn't feel obvious. I took a sip of my coffee, watching her over the rim of the mug. Studying. Not emotionally. Logically. Like I was trying to understand how long this version of her had existed without me noticing. Or maybe, how long I had chosen not to notice. A notification buzzed on her phone. Her thumb moved instantly. Quick. Practiced. She read it. And there it was again. That smile. Small. Real. Effortless. The same one I saw a few nights ago. The same one I hadn't seen directed at me in months. She caught herself a second later, her expression flattening out as she locked the screen. But it was too late. I had already seen it. And this time, I didn't question it. Didn't wonder. Didn't doubt. I just accepted it for exactly what it was. Confirmation. She pushed off the counter. I've got a meeting later, she said. Might be out tonight too. Of course she would be. I nodded. Yeah. Makes sense. Again that flicker. Relief. No resistance. No tension. Just smooth. Easy. Like she was already living the life she wanted. And I was just background noise she hadn't muted yet. She walked past me again, heading back toward the bedroom. Don't wait up, she added casually. The same line. Every time. The bedroom door closed. And just like that, I was alone again. But this time, it didn't feel confusing. It didn't feel painful. It felt final. I set the mug down slowly on the counter. Looked around the apartment one more time. And for the first time since all of this started, I didn't feel like I was losing something. I felt like I had already lost it. And now, I just needed to decide what to do with that truth. I didn't go to work that day. I told myself I would. Got dressed. Grabbed my keys. Even stood by the door for a solid minute like I was about to step into my normal routine. But nothing about that morning was normal anymore. And pretending it was felt pointless. So instead I stayed. Not in the apartment, I couldn't do that. Not with her moving around like nothing had changed. I left, walked the streets for a while, ended up back at the bar downstairs even though it wasn't even noon yet. Daylight made the place look different. Less comforting. More exposed. The scratches on the wood, the worn-out stools, the faint smell that never really goes away, all of it stood out more when you weren't hiding behind dim lighting and noise. Tony wasn't there. Day shift. A different bartender nodded at me, didn't ask questions. I appreciated that. I sat down in the same spot as earlier. Ordered coffee again. Didn't touch it. My phone buzzed once. Work. Ignored it. Buzzed again. Ignored it. Because for the first time in a long time, something had shifted in me. I wasn't trying to figure things out anymore. I already had. Now I was thinking about something else. Timing. Not if something was going to happen, but when. Because everything about her behavior pointed to one thing. She wasn't hiding forever. She was transitioning. Slowly removing herself from one life, while building another. And that meant there was going to be a moment. A point where the two worlds collided. I just didn't know when. Yet. I leaned back slightly, exhaling through my nose. Man, you look like you're solving a murder, the bartender said casually as he wiped down the counter. I almost smirked. Something like that, I muttered. He didn't push. Good. Because explaining it out loud would have made it messy again. And I was done with messy. I sat there longer than I planned to. Long enough for the afternoon crowd to start trickling in. Long enough for my phone to buzz a few more times. Still ignored it. Around 5:30, I finally checked the time and stood up. Paid for the untouched coffee. Walked back upstairs. The apartment was empty. No surprise there. But this time, instead of feeling that hollow silence, I noticed something else. A suitcase. Half-packed. Sitting near the bedroom door. I stopped. Just stared at it. Not shocked. Not even surprised. Just confirming. I walked closer. Clothes folded inside. Neatly. Not rushed. Not thrown together. Planned. There it was again. That word. Everything about this felt planned. Not emotional. Not impulsive. Strategic. Like she had been building an exit for weeks, maybe longer. And I had been standing in the middle of it, thinking we were just going through something. I let out a quiet breath. Still no anger. Just that same cold, steady clarity. I didn't touch the suitcase. Didn't open drawers. Didn't search for more. Because I didn't need more. I had enough. Instead, I walked back into the living room and sat down. Max jumped up next to me, settling in like always. You're the only one who didn't lie, I muttered, scratching behind his ear. His tail tapped lightly against the couch. Outside, the city started to come alive again. Friday night energy. People heading out. Music starting to bleed through the walls from the bar downstairs. And right on cue, my phone buzzed. Her name. I stared at it for a second before answering. Yeah? I'm going out tonight, she said. No greeting. No hesitation. Just information. Okay. I might be late. Of course. All right. A pause. Short. Measured. Like she was waiting for something. A reaction. A question. Anything. I gave her nothing. Don't wait up, she said again. Same line. Different day. Wasn't planning to. Another pause. Longer this time. I could almost feel her trying to read into my tone. Trying to figure out if something had changed. It had. She just didn't know how much yet. Okay, she said finally. Then hung up. I lowered the phone slowly. And for the first time, I felt something new. Not anger. Not sadness. Control. Because now, I wasn't reacting to her moves. I was anticipating them. And that meant I could choose what came next. I looked around the apartment one more time. At what was left of it. At what used to mean something. Then I stood up. Grabbed my jacket. "Come on, Max," I said. His ears perked up immediately. We stepped out into a hallway, the distant bass from the club down the street already echoing faintly through the night. And that's when it clicked. Downtown. Friday night. The same pattern. The same timing. If I wanted answers, real ones, I wasn't going to get them from her. I was going to get them from where she actually lived now. I glanced down at Max. Then back toward the stairs. "Yeah," I muttered quietly. "Let's go see what's really going on." And for the first time since all of this started, I wasn't walking into the unknown. I was walking into the truth. I found her faster than I expected. Downtown was loud, packed, alive, music spilling into the streets, neon lights cutting through the dark. The kind of place where nobody pays attention to anyone unless you give them a reason. She was inside a club on the corner. I didn't hesitate. The bass hit my chest the second I walked in, but none of it mattered. I scanned the room once, twice. And then I saw her. Across the floor. Laughing. Not the polite laugh she gave me lately, a real one. Head tilted back, hand on someone's arm like it belonged there. A guy I had never seen before. Too close. Too comfortable. Like they'd done this more than once. For a second, everything slowed. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just clear. This wasn't new. I didn't walk up to her. Didn't interrupt. I just stood there long enough to understand one thing. She hadn't been leaving me. She had already left. And tonight? I was just watching the life she chose instead. I didn't confront her right away. That's what surprised me. Old me would have walked straight over, made a scene, demanded answers in front of everyone. But I wasn't that guy anymore. I stepped back instead. Watched. Observed. She didn't notice me. Not once. Not even a glance in my direction. That hurt more than anything else. Not because she was with him, but because I didn't exist in her world at all. I pulled out my phone. One message. That's all it took. Sent. 10 minutes later, the music cut. Lights came on. Confusion spread through the crowd. People in suits started walking in, not security, not police. Something else. I saw her face change instantly. That confidence? Gone. She looked around, panic creeping in. Then her eyes landed on me. And for the first time in weeks, she saw me. Really saw me. I didn't move. Didn't say a word. Just held her gaze. And let everything she built start falling apart on its own.